Hey guys, back here for the Brewed Palate, here for yet another Brew Day video. Well, today we're brewing a Firestone Walker Pivo Pils clone. I call it a clone because I'm using the same hops, the recommended yeast, and basically the same grain bill. They alter their water a little bit to enhance the malt flavor. They leave sodium bicarbonate, but I'm not going to tweak the water at all, and I'm not doing a decoction mash, but I am doing a step mash. So we're ready here for the first step, which is a 15 or 20 minute rest at 122 degrees. So I have the mash tun already heated up. So I'm just going to go in and slowly dump in my grains. And in terms of efficiency, when I first put in, you know, all the steps and created a mash profile on Beersmith, it was telling me, you know, that I didn't have to fly sparge, and because of the high grain to water ratio. So I asked a fellow homebrewer at Bitter and Esther's, and he said if you just tweak that ratio and lower it, maybe just have a more full-bodied mash, then you can still fly sparge and not lose efficiency. So that's what I'm going to do. So the steps are 122, 145, 152, and mash out. And then of course a small fly sparge. So the grain bill, which I'll post the recipe in the blog post or in the description of this video, is Pilsner malts, a little bit of Vienna and Munich, and aromatic malts. So like 80, so then it's 85, 86% Pilsner malt, and then the most on top of that is the Vienna, and then the aromatic, about half a pound of aromatic, and then it's about 6 ounces of Munich. So as you see here, I'm stirring the mash. It's a very full-bodied mash, so I'm going to have to stir it quite a bit to prevent dough balls. But alright guys, so I don't know how well you could see that, but after adding a touch of cold water and some ice cubes, I got it down to 122.7 or 6. So that's good enough for me for this rest. So I'm going to go ahead, put the top on, and leave it for about 15 minutes or 15 to 20 minutes. Alright guys, so right now we're collecting our runnings. We had a few hiccups along the way, that's why I didn't film as much of the step mash as I wanted to. But again, the goal was to go from 122 to 145 to 152 to 168. So here's where I'm at. So the 122 was more like 30 minutes because bringing it up to 145 step took a little long. I didn't heat the water up early enough, so I had to wait. So that took longer, and then it was a little too high, so I had to add some cold water and ice cubes to bring it down to exactly 145. Then with the 152 step, which now I'm reading, I looked on the form, should have been 155. You know, I got 150 because I added the next step's water in 2 or 3 degrees low. So what I did was I took a little water boiler I have that I usually use for tea. one of the plug-in ones, brought up to a boil about 4 cups, added that in, got my 152, and then started my clock for a 40-minute saccharification rest, or second stage of the hour, sac rest. So in total, we got about a 70-minute sac rest. Then what happened was, since I kept adding the water with each step, I forgot that my usual mash out process is to boil off, take my first runnings, and then add the mash out water to bring it up to 168. But instead, I added the mash out water right away, and I was only able to get it to 160, so I took about 1.5 gallons of runnings, brought it up to a boil off, I should say, brought 1.5 gallons or so of runnings up to a boil, got it in, got up to 165, so anything between 160, over 160 is really, there's no activity going on, so 165 should be fine. Left that for 10 minutes, and now what I'm doing is I'm collecting runnings until I basically see that there's about 1 inch or so over the grain bed, and then I'm going to add my sparge water, which is actually cooling down now because it was on for longer because of the whole mash out thing. So I'm not going to call it a fiasco this time like I did with my black IPA, if you guys saw that, because although some steps took longer, I feel like I was able to recover. So now I'm slowly collecting runnings, and I'm keeping the mash paddle. I keep feeling with the mash paddle here for the grain bed so that I can know when to stop, add the sparge water, and start adding sparge water over the top and put a piece of tin foil over the top. So we still have, quite a good amount of time to go for that part, but overall, I think I recovered pretty well. Now that I've messed up the process a little bit on a few batches and recovered and still brewed some pretty good beer, I think that as long as the boil goes well, the 90-minute boil, we should get, and I hit my pre-boil gravity, which of course I'll show you, then we should be good. So, okay, I just wanted to show you a little bit of the sparge. So what I'm doing again is using my mash paddle as a gauge to see how much water is over the grain bed. It's a very compact grain bed, so I had to kind of use the mash paddle to kind of push them away from the front portion of the cooler of the mash tun. And now, so I can speed up the flow just a tiny bit, as you see here, I put a binder clip there to keep the hose going smoothly from the mash tun, from the ball valve into the bucket. It's my new buckets. I should point out that my old buckets are right there, and I ruined them while staining my Keyser collar. So I had my wife pick me up some new buckets when she stopped by the homebrew shop for me. So now I have 2 new ale pails that my wife picked up for me at Bitter and Esther's to collect my wort. But I have in the kettle already just under 4 gallons coming up to a boil, so that by the time I get my other 3.75 gallons into the kettle, I'll already be closer to a boil than I would have been otherwise. So just wanted to show you a little snippet of that. I have a piece of tin foil with holes on it. It might not be the best tin foil, but I just pour the sparge water over the tin foil and not directly on top of the grain bed. So I'm going to continue sparging, and I'll be back with the pre-boil gravity, as I said. Hey, BrewTubers, back here vlog style like usual for my pre-boil gravity. I got about a 1/4 gallon less than usual. The grain bill compacted a little earlier than I thought it would, and the sparging take a while, and I really didn't want to squeeze any more wort afterwards when I saw how low the level of liquid was getting. It was literally pretty much touching the grain bed. So I didn't want to risk it, and the wort was getting really clear. So I'm like, you know what, I'm not going to risk it, getting tannins even though I might get a tiny bit, I didn't, the wort was so clear when I tried to take a tiny bit more, and it wasn't worth pushing it. So I took my pre-boil gravity, and I hit my numbers. So I'll show you guys as usual. Flip it around and try to get you here, and we have about 1047, 1045, between 1045 and 1047. So overall, you know, although as you saw, I had some, you know, hiccups in the stepping up the mash, I think I recovered well enough, you know, that I got my numbers, and I got a little over my numbers actually, because it was supposed to be 1044. So I think what I did right was, you know, correcting that mash out step by taking off some runnings, boiling, and putting them back in. So the wort actually got, you know, a good 10 minutes or so at 160, so at the really high end of converting. So I think it converted, you know, just an extra amount more than it would have if I had had it at 168 right away. In terms of OG, we were aiming for 1056, so we got 1057 or 1058. So again, I'll flip you guys around as I did with the pre-boil. As you see, I have about 1056, 1057, somewhere in that range. See here, we're already probably closing in on 5 gallons. So the 6 gallon mark is always at the top of this. So I have to stop basically in the middle of this bar on top. So we're almost actually there. So let's just watch it go for a second. I always think that I have 5.5 gallons. I really one day have to actually mark it off. So we might have gotten perfect volume actually, because the flow just stopped. Yep, we just got just about 5.5 gallons, because the top would be here, it'll be 6 gallons, and then we're about the middle, so it's pretty much exactly 5.5 gallons. And then once we add the starter, even though we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna be decanting most of it, it'll still add just a tad more liquid to the fermenter. So pretty good. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you my Beersmith tally up for the day. All right, so starting up with the mash steps, I called it lager infusion. This is the last step, the mash out. I was trying to fool with things earlier because of a mess up, so I did add 2.35 gallons for mash out, and sparge with 1.7 gallons. So then in terms of mash efficiency, as see here, I wrote in when I saw actually my refractometer for the original gravity, I saw that it was a tad off, but I'm pretty sure I calibrated it last night. So instead of saying 147, I said 146 just in case it was off. And because I kept moving it around during brew day, I made sure that it was calibrated before I took my OG. So we got, in terms of mash efficiency, because I collected just a touch under, about a third of a gallon less from mash, I got 82%, 82.6 mash efficiency. And then in terms of fermentation, I put here that my OG is 1057, and then I'm gonna put here that my pre-boil volume oh wait, never mind. But I'm gonna put here that my measured batch size is in fact 5.5 gallons. So therefore, when I set the brew house efficiency to 74.5 because I've been getting really good efficiency from my mash tun. I got in total 75.6% efficiency, which is amazing for my first Pilsner. So overall, should be good. Alright, so it's time to aerate the wort. I ended up finishing chilling the beer overnight because I knew that I would need to crash it overnight anyway. So when the beer got down to about 55, although I knew it would probably warm up as I transferred it because the room was so hot / a thermal mass, there's probably pockets of heat within the brew kettle. So it chilled down overnight. Now it's about 50-51 degrees, which is perfect for pitching a lager. So there we go, sufficiently aerated, nice amount of bubbles on top. So now I'm gonna put my bung back in there so nothing falls in there and infects the wort. And I have here my crashed yeast starter, some cold break on top, and nice amount of yeast at the bottom. So you go ahead and decant off a good amount of that wort. Decant off a touch more. Alright, so I'm going to leave that much. I know it's a lot, but I'm too afraid to lose yeast. Hey guys, so as usual on the Brewed Palate, for the end of the Brew Day videos, I film a fermentation update. And this one, I think, is for my Pilsner is going to be a little more unique because, Pilsners have a little more lag time, or lager yeast, I should say, have a little more lag time, and because of the colder temperature and the nature of the yeasts. So, for my Pilsner, what happened was I pitched at 7:45 a.m. the day after Brew Day because I had to cold crash my yeast starter overnight and let the wort finish cooling from about 65 down to 50, or 49. So I pitched the yeast at about 49, 50 degrees the next morning, like I said, and then after a few hours, I could already see that it was starting to bubble a little bit, but it took until about the 31-hour mark, this is the 33-hour mark, to really get going, because what I did was I started it between 49 and 51 degrees, or in centigrade, I should say, because of SDC 1000, 9.5 to 10.5, and it really wasn't, speeding up. So I upped it from 10 to 11, or 50 to 51.8, and it started speeding up. And then I asked my friend Sean, who I brewed the Interborough Brown Ale with, and he said he kept his at 52. So I'm like, you know what? I'll up it to between 10.5 and 11.5, or 51.9 and 52.7, so that I could really get it going. And then when I got home from running some errands at the 33-hour mark where we are now, I heard from the sound of it going faster. So I'll show you what it looks like now. As you see, it's cooling it down because, of course, as an active yeast that wanted to get, you know, hotter, warmer. And then so let's open up my fridge, and as you see here, now it's really forming a nice foam on top. It's not, I wouldn't call it a krausen just yet, but it's taking off now. As you see here, it's still not like crazy fast, but it's bubbling pretty much every second or every other second, so it's going well. And so we'll see. Of course, if you know, of course, if the krausen forms over the weekend, because I'm filming this on Friday, then of course I'll show a picture or another quick clip in this video. But I just wanted to show you that it took about 30 hours, 31 hours to really get going, and also it took me raising the temp just a bit. But as you see here, even with me decanting some of the yeast starter, it's a pretty full fermenter, as I usually like to do. But the reason I've been doing 5.5 gallons instead of 5 is because, you know, when you dry hop, you lose a little bit, and you never know how much proteins from the malts settle out, so you really don't know. It's easier to have an extra half gallon so that you always keg 5 gallons, or you always bottle closer to 5 gallons. So that's my deal, and that's why I have a big wide blow off, because, you know, I don't want to, you know, because it'll take some headspace, or add some headspace to the little bit that's in the fermenter, and then the CO2 has a big wide 5/16 tube to travel to the, you know, to the blow-off jar, which is full of star sand solution. So so that's where I'm going to keep it now, temperature-wise, the 10.5 and 11.5. That's the last little bit update, unless I decide to give you more on my Pivo Pils inspired beer, which I have named Lions Roar Pilsner, and in my blog post for this I'll explain that. If you know Firestone Walker's logo, you'll kind of, you know a little bit more into that, why did it Lions Roar. Yeah, so happy home brewing, because I'm probably not going to post this on a Homebrew Wednesday, and I'll see you soon. Bye. Cheers.